Well, good evening to everyone. In fact, I really need to say hola and buenos noches to everyone because we are definitely a split team tonight. The usual crowd is in North Carolina holding down the fort, doing good work, while I am playing hooky right now with my husband. Don had planned this trip of a lifetime for us to Spain, except the only problem was he planned it right over AgingWell. So as you can see, this is a transcontinental production. And so I am in Madrid, Spain, and the rest of our team, Tom Roth, Courtney Hayes, Audrey Belfaro, are all in North Carolina. So we are practicing emergency preparedness because we are doing redundancy on this team. So if anything happens to my end, Courtney is there ready to jump in and finish out this production. But I just couldn't miss y'all. I mean, I always say, let's have a date on the second Tuesday of every month. So here I am and very happy to be here. I will tell you, it's about 11 o'clock at night, maybe 11:30 now. So I may look a little more peaked than normal, but I am happy to be here. And we have got an amazing program for tonight. And you know, whenever y'all email me, we listen. We absolutely listen and take to heart everything you ask for. And so we have been getting several requests for a more vegetarian-based recipe. And so we called on Jeremy Wally again, the owner and executive chef of LuLu and Blue in High Point, to see if he would put together a wonderful vegetarian recipe for us, which he did. This is his signature tomato soup. So I hope you enjoy it. It looked amazing.
Hello, this is Jeremy Wally at LuLu and Blue in High Point, North Carolina. We're here with AgingWell. Thank you, Deb, for featuring us again. It's a pleasure, and thank you for featuring High Point again. Today we're going to be making rustic tomato soup. Very simple recipe. Let's get started. You want to start off, I have a large saute pan, just so you can see everything that I'm doing. I would suggest a small pot, something with some walls to it so you're not splashing everywhere. And you want to get that pan rolling at about medium heat. You're going to add your extra virgin olive oil. That's 1/4 cup. And once that oil is warm, you're going to add your onion, your celery, and your carrots. I have 1/4 small onion here. You can see that the grain of the onion is going that way. So if you want to put a small dice on it, you just want to slice it about 5/6 of the way through, and then you're just going to cut it with the grain like so, and then straight down. And when you get to the end, you can just turn it on its side. Finish that. Carrots, you want to cut them into sticks, not necessarily matchstick, a little bit larger. And then into small cubes. Same with your celery. Cut it long ways, and then just cut it into small cubes. Pan's hot now. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. You're going to add your onion. Carrot. And your celery. And you're going to sweat that until your onions are translucent. It's probably a minute. You can also add your dry herbs. This is basil, oregano, thyme, and black pepper. Once your onions begin to become translucent, you want to add your garlic. And all you're looking for in your garlic is a little bit of color. You have to be careful at this point because you don't want to burn your garlic. You just want it to become, you're somewhat pan roasting it. You're just looking for a very light golden brown on your garlic. Make sure that it's stirred in. Minced garlic will clump easily, so just make sure that you stir it thoroughly. I have a high heat spatula here, very important. You don't want to use a spatula that's not high heat because you will melt it. So the red handle indicates that it's built for high heat. Once you get a little bit of color on that garlic, you're going to add your red wine. Any red wine for this recipe will work. You just don't want anything sweet. So you're going to deglaze with your red wine. Really, you just want to bring that to a boil. Should boil quickly, about 20 seconds. Then I have vegetable stock here. That's what you're looking like so far. Your red wine's cooked down. All the alcohol's cooked out of it. Vegetable stock, you can use any vegetable base. Just follow the directions on the package because it can be really salty if you put too much vegetable base in with your water. So just be careful there. You're going to add that. And you have 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. Always choose a quality tomato. Canned tomatoes when you're making tomato soup, it does matter. I would stay away from store brands. An Italian tomato generally is going to be a better tomato. We're going to add that. You can add your salt and your cane sugar as well. At this point, you want to make sure that your soup's turned down to medium-low, just a safe temperature. Low even if you want to let it ride. I would suggest cooking this soup for a minimum of 20 minutes. You don't want it to boil. You just want a very light simmer. And once you've cooked the soup for about 20 minutes, you can add your cream. If you're lactose intolerant or your diet is plant-based, they now make plant-based heavy cream, or you could substitute oat milk as a pretty neutral flavor, soy milk as well. Turn the heat up on that just a little bit, just to bring all of the ingredients together. Now that it's been about 20 or 25 minutes, the soup is reduced and the flavors should be full by now. Just a note, soup is always better the next day. So if you want to plan and cook this soup ahead of time and serve it the day after, the flavor will always be much better. I mentioned deglazing in the process. Deglazing is simply adding a liquid to release all of the flavor and anything that may be stuck to the bottom of the pan. I'm just going to ladle some of this to a bowl. Have some nice manchego cheese to add to the top of it. If you're lactose intolerant or plant-based, a fine substitute for cheese is nutritional yeast. If you're not familiar with that, you can pick it up at most grocery stores. It's incredibly nutritious and it's delicious. I mean, it tastes just like Parmesan cheese. Then I have some micro basil as well. And it's that simple. You'll notice that your standard tomato soup that you get out of a can, even if you add a bunch of milk to it or cream, it generally has a harshly red color to it. That's from tomato paste. Tomato paste is really high in acidity. So, you know, when you make a homemade tomato soup, you always want to use a good canned tomato, and you'll achieve this nice color as opposed to your crayon red tomato soup. Thanks for joining us today with Aging Well. I'm Jeremy at LuLu and Blue.
Thanks, Jeremy. He always does such a great job sharing these signature recipes with us. And, you know, I had reached out to Jeremy because he is a wonderful friend of Aging Well and also because he's in High Point. And you're going to notice from our next segment that we're kind of on a High Point evening tonight because I got to meet an amazing group of women called the Steel Magnolias. All of these are alumni from High Point University. And through these women, I was able to also meet Ms. Mariana Cobain. So she is the first lady of High Point University and really learn all about the phenomenal gardens that are throughout their campus. And so this evening, Ms. Cobain is going to give us a tour of her gardens, the Mariana Cobain Arboretum and Botanical Gardens, 30 gardens, exquisite gardens all across the campus of High Point University. And I will tell you this, they are open for tours. And so you will get information on these tours with our follow-up information, but they're totally free of charge. So if you'd like to go over there and enjoy them for yourself, they really are exquisite. So Mrs. Cobain, I'm happy to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Deb. This is so wonderful to welcome you here at the Mariana Cobain Botanical Gardens at High Point University. We have 30 gardens on this campus and we welcome you to come and see them. Obviously, because of time, you can only see a few. We have a lot of landscaped areas around the garden, around the buildings too. And we want you to be able to enjoy what our students see every day and our professors, faculty, and staff. And I'm going to have our curator and our director of our gardens tell you about all the gardens that we have, Matt Mahoney and Rachel Diaz. Welcome again, and please enjoy our gardens.
Hello, as Ms. Cobain said, I'm Matt Mahoney, Director of Grounds for High Point University, and I'd like to introduce you to the Morgan Knott Garden. Knott as in K-N-O-T, a traditional English hedge garden. We've added flowers to it. It's very, one of our showiest gardens, and just is a really big hit with all our visitors. This is the first place they typically come to when they're visiting our campus, prospective students and their families. It was installed originally in 2008 with a boxwood hedge, but the whole International Promenade where we're at right now was remodeled in 2016. So this was remodeled as well. It's with Schilling's dwarf Yopon hollies as the hedge, and right now we have sun patience as the fill with the color, and as you can see, it's quite spectacular.
Hi, I'm Rachel Diaz, curator of the Botanic Gardens here on campus. We are standing in front of the building that houses our tropical plant collection. It was generously donated by Don and Teresa Kane. Let's go take a look inside.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jason Latier. I'm the director of the Kane Conservatory here at High Point University. And this is our tropical conservatory on campus. So this is a space where both students, faculty, and staff can kind of take a break from their hectic academic life and just kind of interact with nature on a year-round basis. So this is a tropical conservatory. We're trying to transport you to the rainforest in a sense when you walk through the space. And it's both an educational building. We use it for teaching some of our primary classes on biology and other courses through our science department. And it's also a space for volunteers to be able to come and work and really get their hands dirty and really enjoy interacting with nature and building beautiful displays with us and my staff here. So if you're interested in volunteering, feel free to reach out, and we'd always love to have more volunteers in the conservatory. So one of the fun plants we have in the conservatory that's always a showstopper, it's actually part of our natural resources collection. So these are plants that have had some sort of use by humans in the wild or in their domesticated form. So behind me is the traveler palm. It's native to Madagascar, and it's one of these interesting species of plants that people have been able to use to navigate in the past. So on tropical islands, when explorers would stop, they would get off, look for natural resources out in here, fresh water, some food, some sort of meat. Well, if these were on the island that they stopped, they could use them to navigate back to their ship, and that's because they have this unusual character of growing north to south. So as long as you know the sun goes east to west and you see this tree goes north to south, you can almost use it like a compass in the wilderness to be able to get back to your ship. On top of that, it grows in brackish water that has salt water mixed in with it, and so if you cut one of those leaves, you can just get tons of fresh water pouring out of the leaf, so you can like replenish your water stores on your ship. So this is called the traveler palm. It's both ornamental and educational, and we love having our volunteers come in and learn about some of these plants. And if you want to just interact with the public and with the students to give these little vignettes on our plants, we'd love to have you as one of our docents or one of our volunteers for giving tours as well. So this is one of the prime spots in the Kane Conservatory. This is where a lot of people gravitate to because there's moving water. It's very peaceful. You can come here, you can have a bite to eat, you can study, and it's a wonderful space. And it's still used for education for us because it's an area where we can really display some tropical vines as well as epiphytes. Epiphytes are plants that live up in trees on top of other plants like orchids, and as well as some ferns as well. So we use this beautiful arch around this waterfall, this natural waterfall, to illustrate some of different physiologies of how plants grow in the wild. And there's not only plants in this bed too, we also have some friends in the base of the pool that we'll show you here in just a second. So here we have the Crescent Pond at the base of our waterfall, where we have some of these beautiful old koi fish that are very happy living down here year-round in this tropical environment. This is a really nice way to have not just plants displayed in the conservatory, but also have a little bit of animal life brought into the space. And it's a beautiful display. We have several large koi fish that are enjoying swimming around in this pond.
This is our Teresa's Cafe Garden, right outside the conservatory and the delicious Butterfly Cafe. This is one of our most heavily trafficked gardens because, as you can see, there are lovely seating areas spread throughout where students can eat a meal, do homework, and socialize. This is a garden that we switch the flowers out of twice a year. So it's really fun to kind of play with new color combinations and new designs and test out new plants. This is our Patrick and Ryan Scarborough Butterfly Garden, and it is a certified monarch way station. Now, with most of our gardens, we think primarily about the needs of the students, the staff, the faculty, and visitors. But in this garden, we really wanted to think about the elements of habitat that could be provided for butterflies, bees, and other pollinators. So we made sure to have flowers that would be blooming through all seasons from early spring till late fall, so that there's always a floral nectar source for those pollinators. We also made sure to have a water feature for them to rehydrate on their journey as well. As you can see, some of our flying friends are enjoying a bit of a drink from this gorgeous purple loosestrife. I can see some bumblebees, some small wasps. Even some flies can be pollinators, as well as bats and moths at night.
Hi, this is our mailer Promenade, which is part of our innovation corridor, which is between these beautiful big buildings of the Congdon Health Sciences, the Wanick Natural Sciences, and the Commerce, Wilson School of Commerce. Behind us is the Kane Conservatory and the Fusion Garden, the Fusion Topiary Garden, where we have some of our Arbor Day programs. This is a great gathering space for our students and faculty and staff.
Hey, welcome to the Doris Deal Shade Garden. This is another purposeful garden that is intended to give our students a place of solitude, reflection, study time, quiet time. Although we have a lot of different diverse species of hydrangeas in here, a lot of Solomon seal. Even right here we have a part of our steel magnolia, deciduous magnolia collection. All sorts of unique plants in here. It's absolutely wonderfully beautiful late April, early May, that time of year. And it's just another example of how we try to create these nice little spaces that can kind of take you away from everyday life. Not only do we get students in here studying, get a lot of faculty in this garden. They eat their lunches out here, they take their breaks out here. The amount of shade keeps it cool, so it's a good place to visit. And as you can see right here, some of these signs that we have made up to identify the plants, not just the plants, but also the different varieties and cultivars of plants. This is very important in this particular garden to show you the difference between the different styles of hydrangeas, different types of hydrangeas. Okay, another example of some of the educational processes for these gardens is the box, which usually holds garden maps. It tells you which garden you're at. You can open it out, take one out. It'll give you an interpretive guide through the garden and also specific plants. Not every plant is documented, but the majority of them are, especially the unique and interesting types.
This is the Cottrell Amphitheater. This is an example of how we have placed a garden and a space according to the landscape we've had. We've had this beautiful Cottrell building, which is a student-centered building where they come and get coaching and how to dress and how to interview, and they have their success coaches here. So we had this huge hill, and we built an amphitheater right here where we have a lot of concerts, lots of events, lots of students gathering, and then behind it is the waterfall garden back there, where there are lots of distinct plants growing in there, and then we have a filigree of plants that make a shape, and then the horses running towards the building that were donated by the Phillips collection to us. And we're going to have on the other side of the bridge a Japanese garden in the next few months.
Okay, so welcome to the end of David Hayworth Park. This is an area that was constructed back in 2011. It's called our Hillside and Sculpture Garden. As you can see to my right is an example of one of the sculptures. Very unique plant material in here, all sorts of different varieties of trees. We've got in this one section alone, the two gardens, the hillside, the sculpture. To my left is the Wisteria Arbor, Daphne's garden, and a portion of the azalea path. So there's a lot of action going on in here. A lot of places to explore, a lot of neat little places to sit and relax, listen to the water flow, and just enjoy. That's what it's all about here at High Point University, is providing areas for our staff, faculty, and students to enjoy and to just kind of get away from it all. This is an example. We're in the same place. We're just looking to my left just a bit. We have the Wisteria Arbor here, and Daphne's Garden has a lot of interest, a lot of color earlier in the spring. And then the pathway going down to the left there is a portion of the azalea path, which is probably the prettiest garden on campus in April and May. I don't think there's another area on campus that compares to this pathway here. It's full of azaleas. There's a nice collection of mahonias, quince, all sorts of stuff. It's just absolutely beautiful in the spring.
This is the Hensley Culinary Herb Garden that was designed. This is our second garden that was designed. It's basically herbs. You have rosemary, you have oregano, you have thyme, you have garlic, you have cloves, you have pomegranates, you have rosemary, you have olives, blueberries, figs, and a few plants that attract butterflies to pollinate. And then every garden has a box like that that tells you what's in the garden. And then there's a quote that we had our students draw that inspires you when you're in the garden. And this garden is supposed to be the touch-feel garden. When you touch and smell the herbs, it's very inspiring. And these herbs are not treated with chemicals because our chefs use them in their cooking. Here we are in our last garden on our tour, but surprisingly, this was our first garden when we first started. Matt and I started this garden, we designed it, and he planted 90 different varieties of roses here. It was beautiful. It started with sticks of roses, and then when they got bigger and started blooming, the scent here was unbelievable and beautiful. Every rose is a different color, the different varieties. Some are floribundas where they open up, and some are more like the cut roses. Some are miniature roses, some are topiary roses like you see in the background. The eagle back there, we even had a bird nest, a robin bird nested between the talons of the statue right there. We have a picture of that in our book. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful day to see these gardens. It's a little hot today, but we would love for you to come and visit and see the gardens for yourself. Take care, and this is Mariana Cobain.
We would be so excited if you wanted to come visit us in person as well as virtually. We currently offer guided tours with me, and Deb can give you all the details.
It was such a fun day getting to really spend the morning with Mrs. Cobain and her gardening experts. It was just, again, a lovely, lovely day. And they're very sincere about inviting people to come. And so I will give you the link with the follow-up information to let you know how to reach out and sign up for that tour. And I will tell you this, I've had one question asking for the recipe for the tomato soup. And so it should have gone out with the link for this presentation, but if you got that from someone else and didn't get the link, I'm going to give you my email address. And it's actually my personal email address. It's the only one I can access while we're traveling. But if you will email me, I will send you the recipe because I don't want you to have to wait until I get back to make this delicious soup. So my email address is debburcombe@gmail.com. So if you will email me at that address, whoever needs the recipe or anything else that we're showing, please feel free. And just remember, you will get the follow-up information. You should get the link and any of the documents that will say that Aaron's going to be talking about next. And speaking of Aaron, many of you know that my husband and I moved here from Utah. And what you may not know is that Salt Lake City, which is the most populated area in Utah, is sitting right on an earthquake fault line. And so I can promise you the folks in Utah take emergency preparedness extremely seriously. But, you know, I think about emergency preparedness in many, many different ways. Even when we all had to shelter in place for a quarantine for a little thing called COVID. So again, emergencies don't pick and choose where they're going to happen or when they're going to happen. In fact, I think Aaron may tell you, sometimes they happen at the most inopportune time. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce my friend, Aaron Sainsbury. And he's going to talk to you about what they do in Utah. But also remember, if you have questions for him, he's going to be happy to answer the questions. If you'll put them in the Q&A section, we will follow up at the end of his presentation, and he's going to try to answer every one of your questions. So Aaron, take it away.
Thank you, Deb. Much appreciated. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I love September. And I'll tell you exactly why I love September. I love September because it's National Preparedness Month. I don't know if any of you knew that. I don't know if that's the reason why I'm on here, Deb, but National Preparedness Month is my favorite month, second favorite. If you remember to ask me what my first favorite month is, I'll tell you towards the end. But September is a great month. It's a month that I go through all of my emergency supply kits. It's a month that I go through my house and do a home hazard hunt. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. It's the month that I go through and I change all the batteries in my smoke detectors, my carbon monoxide detectors. It's just a great month. I'm going to put this PowerPoint on here quick, and we will. Okay, we'll talk about emergency preparedness. First off, I did want to say that that recipe for the soup looked really good, so I hope those that make it enjoy. To Deb, buen provecho, and then the gardens were absolutely beautiful. I did learn that traveler palm, if I'm ever lost or need water, that's good to know, and part of it's going up here in my noggin, and it's going to be part of my emergency plan in case I'm in areas that I may get stranded. So that was great to learn. Again, thanks for the opportunity to join and present, Deb. So when we think about emergency preparedness, I'm going to talk about some of the potential hazards that could happen in the community. But to start off, here's 3 of my favorite quotes of all times when it comes to emergency preparedness. Just thinking about it means you're one step closer. The second one is, it's better to prepare 5 years too early than 5 minutes too late. And one of my favorites by Benjamin Franklin, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So again, every community has potential hazards, and they can result in localized emergencies in your neighborhood or your community. Knowing what those hazards are is an important first step into developing neighborhood or community emergency plans. So it is good to reach out to your community emergency preparedness coordinator, find out what hazards are what are potential hazards in your community and how to respond to them. Talk to people who have lived through them. Talk to people who have prepared for them. See what others are saying about it, and what you can do to put together your emergency preparedness plan. We'll talk about that quite a bit. But why should you be prepared? What are some of the reasons why you should be prepared? I'll tell you, emergency resources are going to be extremely limited. In my community, we have a population of 86,000, and we're probably pretty typical along the national statistics. But my community is a population of 86,000, and we have 4 ambulances to start off. So how far are those resources going to go? They're going to be extremely limited. So being prepared is crucial. it helps you and those around you survive, plain and simple. So make sure you not only take it serious, but also help those around you prepare and know how to prepare. But it also reduces fear and anxiety, especially in children. I know a lot of elementary school aged kids will practice and prepare for an earthquake here in Utah. They drop on the floor, they cover, and they hold on to their desk, covering their head and neck area. Those are some of the things that the school district does to reduce fear and anxiety for kids. If it does happen, they're prepared. And I know other schools along the anybody anywhere else in the country, it does a really good job about doing active shooter exercises now as well. And why? For the same reasons, just to plan and prepare. So if your disaster recovery plan looks something like this, I knew I could throw this in because of my audience here. You guys probably all know these Dilbert cartoons, one of my favorite. If it looks something like this, we probably need to do a little something to prepare. So hazards can really be divided into two categories. Those that are naturally occurring, they can cause disruption, and then those that are caused by human activities, either on purpose or by accident. So human caused or technological hazards are some of the things we're going to talk about. But natural hazards, let's talk a little bit about natural hazards. What kind of natural hazards do you have in your community or the communities that you visit? I know Deb's in Spain. What are some of the hazards there that you looked up prior to traveling? I know natural hazards such as floods, earthquakes, tropical storms, wildfire, drought, avalanche, pandemic. Prior to COVID, I'd go out and do a presentation and talk about pandemic and epidemics, and not many people knew what I was talking about. And there's also not very many or no other hazards that will reach the entire globe. So it was pretty interesting to see such a phenomenon. But severe weather, winter storms, thunderstorms, tornadoes, high winds, microbursts, heat wave, things like that. But knowing what your hazards are when you travel is important. You can see those two little signs there that I'm showing on the screen. Safe area, tornado shelter. Those are some of the things that I look for when I go into airports. Where is the tornado shelter? Or when I'm in areas where there's evacuation routes, I'll know where the evacuation routes are, where the high points are, which areas I need to go, which areas I need to stay away from. But when it comes to natural hazards in Utah, some of these won't apply. We don't have the hurricanes or tropical cyclones. So that wouldn't be on my list, but it is something that I want to make myself aware of when I do travel. One thing that I do want to throw out is I don't know if you guys are aware of one of the most rare natural disasters in the world. It's called a Limnic Eruption. Normally I would ask who's heard of a Limnic Eruption before, but it's kind of hard to do. So if that's something that you've never heard of, it might be something you want to become familiar with, not because it could happen here in the United States, but it could happen in West Africa where it's happened before, and especially if you plan to travel. Human-caused technological hazards, hazardous material incidents. My kids think I'm kind of a nut job because when we go out of town, I told you, I talk a lot about traveling, but when we go out of town, I'll take my emergency response guidebook, and as we pass semis with tankers, I'll have the kids look up the placard on the semi and find out what materials it's carrying and what hazards it could cause. What are some of the ways to either mitigate the exposure or whether or not how first responders would actually respond to those. So some of the other human caused power outages, fallen aircraft. I know here in the Salt Lake area, we're right in line with 2 major airports. Within 18 miles, we've got 2 airports. So some people don't recognize that as a potential hazard, but here it is. Terrorism, criminal acts, civil disturbance. Some of these we really saw a pickup in the last few years, as far as people going out and protesting, and protests turn into civil disturbance. Things like dam failure, cyber attacks is huge. I read just the other day here in our community, there was a city that was attacked, cyber attack, and they ended up paying, sending over $1 million to a scam that came across their desk, and it was a public entity here in the valley. So those things are picking up. They're huge. So those are some of the things we need to plan and prepare for as well. Here's a few of the hazards that, I'm sorry, I skipped this slide here. Human caused technological hazards, hazardous material incidents. Oh, we did talk about that. I'm sorry. Here's some of the hazards that I've seen. Here's some of the hazards that I want you to be aware of. Some of the things that could happen in Salt Lake City. In 2020, we had a huge windstorm come through, knocked down trees that were 50, 60 years old. It was unreal. I had the opportunity to go out and talk to some of the residents that lived there all their life, or for the last 60 years, and they'd never seen anything like it. So to see trees uproot and land on houses and cars, and take out concrete, sidewalk, and curb and gutter was just unbelievable. But also major windstorms that cause those residents to have to evacuate. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well, about your options of either evacuating or staying home. So here's some more that I pulled off the internet with flooding, hurricane or tornado, and then also wildfires. We've got a lot of wildfire potential, a lot of areas in our valley that they're considered urban wildland interface, where the wildland meets up with houses. I did mention September is National Preparedness Month, so Be Ready is the theme. I don't know if you've been on Be Ready's website, but FEMA has helped prepare a Be Ready website with disaster preparedness information. But a good start is to make a plan, not only a good peace of mind, but a major survival advantage during and after a disaster. What if the infrastructure is interrupted or drastically changed? What if some of the things that you're used to, and what are some of the things that you have, the necessities and utilities that you have, what if they're no longer available? And what does your plan look like, and how are you going to survive? Also, get a kit, be informed, and get involved. Those are things that are extremely important. Knowledge is power. So do your homework. I talked a little bit about finding out what hazards are available in your area and some of the potential hazards. But it's good to know as part of your plan. It's good to know, what to plan and prepare for. And then as far as being involved, neighbors, it's all about neighbors helping neighbors. I told you we've got 86,000 residents and 4 ambulances. How far are those going to go? You may not see first responders or professional folks that respond to these disasters. You may not see them for weeks or months. So those are some of the things you need to need to be involved in. But neighbors helping neighbors is huge here in Utah, and I know across the country as well. So get involved by helping and promoting emergency preparedness in your community. Know what your neighbors' needs are. Know what to plan and prepare for. Again, is huge. But knowing who your neighbors are. I don't know if you guys, if you look to your neighbors on both sides of you and find out. I know that I've got a lady, a single elderly woman that lives on one side of me, and it's something that is important for me to know. I need to know that I could go check on her, and I know that there's not much that she can do to help me. So knowing who your neighbors are and how you can help them and how you can be involved is huge. Also, there's things like VOADs. I don't know if you guys have heard of VOADs, but they're volunteer organizations active in disasters. Find out what their needs are. I know that they always have a need for helping hands, and they go out in the community and help if there's ever disaster or even mitigation projects. Right now we're going through and we've identified some areas in our city that are wildland urban interface that we need trees cut, and we need to provide defensible space up against areas where the wildland meets houses, and there's no defensible space. We've got a group that's going to come in from these VOADs that are going to come in, and they're going to help us out, and they're going to go through and they're going to mitigate that area and go through and cut down trees and separate those areas so that the houses are protected. So find out what their needs are, and then you can also knowing what your interests are, you can find out where you can help. So what happens if disaster strikes? If disaster strikes, remain calm and patient. Put the plan into action. Preparedness realities during a disaster: you have a 50% chance of being home. Do you have your emergency supplies at home you need? There's a 25% chance of being at work, a 25% chance of being elsewhere. Ask yourself what your plan should look like. In that 25% of being elsewhere, more than likely your car is going to be with you. Do you have things in your car? Do you have a kit necessary? Do you have a way to survive if you are elsewhere and you do have your car with you? What does that look like? But also be flexible and be adaptable. I know that you might have a plan. A lot of times those plans they may not work. So be flexible and be ready to and be resilient. Be ready for change. There will be change, and you will have to adapt. Has anyone heard of cascading events? Cascading events are things like, let's say there's an earthquake. What's going to be the cause of what's going to come out of the earthquake? We're going to have things like tsunamis, leak from nuclear power plants, hazmat storage facility release, bridges and dam collapse, landscape and soil liquefaction, which is going to be huge in our city with liquefaction, eradication of access to roads and supplies, power and communication failures and outages. And then we're also going to have fires. Those are some of the things that are going to be part of the cascading events if we have an earthquake, and those are also going to be play a major role in your preparedness plan and the response, and when professional first responders are going to be able to help. So what should your personal preparedness plan look like? What should be included in your preparedness plan? Here's some of the things that are absolutely needed. Again, hazard analysis. Do a community threat assessment. Find out what threats are in your community. Again, here in Utah, don't have to worry about hurricanes, but we are going to have to worry about things like avalanches, where you may not, those are things you may not have to worry about as, in your living community. But family household communication plan, prepare your emergency contact list, and identify an out-of-state contact. Do you have an out-of-state contact? Phones, especially cell phones, are going to be overwhelmed. There's not a lot of landlines anymore. There's not a lot of the old reliable. Landlines are extremely reliable, but as times change and cell phones become more prominent and dominant, the landlines are few and far between. So we do know that landline or that cell phone service is going to be interrupted. We know that it's going to be overwhelmed. Everybody's going to try to get on at the same time. It's not going to work. So knowing who your out-of-state contact is, and knowing that it's better to use text message than it is phone calls is important. If I were to send a text message during a time when my cell phone service isn't working, it will sit in the queue until it has an opportunity to go through. So use your text messages. But also, if I'm trying to call, let's say, my wife in the same state, it may not go through because it's tying up two lines. So having that out-of-state contact, I know I can call my uncle who lives in the state of Washington. I know I can call him, and it may go through, and then she can call him. And we're only tying up one line instead of two. Knowing that's important and including that in your plan is important. So home hazard hunt, make sure you're doing a home hazard hunt. Know the safest room in your home. Let those that live with you know the safest room in your home. Establish all the possible ways to exit and keep those areas clean. I've got an area that's in my basement that is the safest room is also the room that has the electrical panel. So those are some of the things you need to be aware of. If the disaster includes water and flooding and things like that, it may be safe in one circumstance, but it may not be for others. So know where those panels are and what your hazards are. Also know where your utility shutoffs are. Do you know how to shut the water off to your house? Do you know how to shut the gas off to your house? One thing that the gas company does push is you don't want to go around just shutting your gas off, because you need somebody from the gas company there when it gets turned back on. So unless you're smelling gas, or unless you know that there's a problem, I wouldn't go through and just shut things off. Make sure that it may be some time before you get it back on. So make sure there's an absolute need. Also, items that fall shift or may come off of the wall. Pictures and televisions, dressers, water heaters. Are those strapped? Are those secure? I know that I tell people earthquakes here in Utah aren't what kill people. It's the things that are around you. So what's going to shift? What's going to fall? What areas are the safest in your house? Again, the two most dangerous areas of the house are one, your garage, because of some of the things that you have in there, and some of the things that can fall on you, and the heavier boxes and some of your storage is generally in your garage, and then also in the kitchen, extremely dangerous. Evacuation routes, know where the evacuation routes are and reunification locations. Shelter planned, but also don't forget to include your pets. That's one thing that you need to plan and prepare for. What is your shelter plan, and what are you going to do with your pet? Our shelter plan heavily includes Red Cross here in South Jordan. So what are you going to do with your pets when you go to a Red Cross shelter and they only let service animals in? So assistant animals, comfort animals, or companion animals they won't let them in. They'll only, and there is a difference between those animals and a service animal. So you need to know whether or not they'll be accepted into a shelter. Pet preparedness. Your pets are important members of your family, so they need to be included in your plan. I've talked to people about their pet preparedness, and jokingly they'd say, yeah, it's in my food plan, or my emergency response and food plan. So I say, well, if you got chickens and rabbits and fish, I guess that's okay, but if you have a dog, it's not going to work. You need to have a plan for them. Personal preparedness includes becoming familiar with other plans as well. What is the plan in your neighborhood, or in the school district, or in the schools? What about daycares? Your work or your spouse's work? Do you know what their plan is, and is that included in your plan? Does anything ever go as planned? Always hope for the best, but plan for the worst, right? You don't know what you don't know, so talk to those that have that experience. As an emergency manager, we learn a ton about emergency planning in lessons learned. I'll go out and talk to people. I'll read on the internet about some of the things that we learned. I'll give you an example. Is police response to an active shooter situation greatly changed when Columbine happened in 1999. It was a huge eye opener, and some of the things that we learned are from past experiences and from the lessons learned. So know what those are. And also have a backup plan, and a backup plan to your backup plan. Deb mentioned redundancy. Redundancy is huge. My kids all think I'm crazy because when I go different places, I talked about going on trips and taking my emergency response guidebook and having them pull up some of the hazards and the placards that are on the highway with semis and that. But I also teach them that they need to pay attention to their surroundings. Think about some of the dangers when they go into a movie theater. I always make sure that they know not only the entrance that they went in, but where are your exits when you're in there. Look around, pay attention to your surroundings, know where other exits and other your emergency evacuation routes are. But that goes for malls, that goes for movie theaters, hotels, buildings, many different situations. I took the kids to Las Vegas this last New Year's, and we went down to the Strip, and the millions and millions of people are down on the Strip. They close it completely. I'm sure you've been there, but I pulled them back out of the crowd and explained where we needed to go, where we needed to meet if we get separated, if something happens, what we need to do, and which direction they need to go, and then also had a backup plan for that. So like I said, a backup plan for a backup plan. It's and be flexible and adaptive. So after a disaster, you're going to have three options. You're going to plan to evacuate, which you can walk or drive, or you're going to be able to stay at home. Some of that will be dependent on what happens and what the catastrophic event is. Is the building that you're in or the house that you live in, is that unreinforced masonry buildings, and you're in an area that's prone to seismic activity? Are the houses going to collapse in the event of a catastrophic disaster? Flooding, are you in an area where there's a potential for floods in 100-year storms? And then also the cascading events on top of that. I joke about, I don't have great earthquake insurance, but I have really good fire insurance. So I may not, my house may not be damaged by the earthquake, but it's going to burn down when my water heater tips. Joke about that, but at the same time, things like that will happen. So you need to plan and prepare for it. Up in Salt Lake in the avenues, we've got a lot of areas that are unreinforced masonry. So we do plan and prepare for that as well. And then also when it comes to sheltering in your house, you need to remember that, you probably won't have utilities. How are you going to live without water or without gas or without electricity? How are the kids going to handle not having their Wi-Fi? I know that's important for some, extremely important for some. So do you have other things for them? So after disaster, like I said, you're going to walk. So do you have a 96-hour kit for each member of the family, including your pets? Whatever you can push, pull, or put on your back is what you'll be able to take when you walk. And then think about your water weight. It's 8.35 pounds per gallon of water. So do you have a different way to treat water? Do you have a different way to get water? Are you carrying a water filter or some way to treat it? And then also, think about the important documents that you're going to need to have. What documents are those, and how are you going to carry all those documents? I know that I've converted all of my hard copy documents that I do have at home. I converted them over and put them on it and scanned them all, put them on a flash drive. Those are things you need to think about, and I can evacuate with those documents. And then driving, an emergency disaster supply kit for each member of the family, along with your pets again. That's important. But what can you fit in your car, or what vehicle are you going to take? And you need to think about fuel. Are you going to have, if you think about your vehicle right now, if something were to happen, do you have enough fuel or gas in your vehicle to get where you need to go? Do you let it get down way below half tank before you fill up, or do you drive your car real close to that E mark? So those are some of the things you got to plan and prepare for. You do spend a lot of time in your car, and it needs to be equipped with emergency supplies. And if you were to stay home, do you have the food storage and the supplies you need, and is in a controlled environment? So not only do you have those items, but again, think about, what if you don't have the utilities? What if you don't have a way to cook? What if you don't have a way to heat your home? Do you have a way to cool your house down if your power's out, or do you have a way to warm your house if your power's out and you need to cool the house down? So some of the things you need to plan and prepare for. Disaster supply kit checklist, you're going to see a lot if you pull those up on the internet. In fact, I'm going to send a template over to, or a guide over to Deb, so she can send them out. But if you get online and you search for a disaster supply kit, you're going to get a ton of different disaster supply kits. I hope you remember that these are for a guide, and they're just a template. They're going to help you. You need to tailor it to your needs. If I were to have Deb and somebody else dump their purses out on the table, you're going to have things that are similar, but you're going to have a lot of things that are tailored to you. You need to remember that, and you need to plan for that. So just use them as a guide. 12 areas of preparedness. Some things that to put in your kit. You need to have shelter, clothing, and fire, a way to stay warm. Water, food, hygiene, and sanitation. We're going to talk about hygiene and sanitation a little bit more. Light and power, first aid, communications, safety and security, tools and personal items, cooking, important documents, and transportation. When you think about some of those things, you need to think about if it's important to you, you need to have more than one way of doing it. And I'll use a light, for example. Light is important to me, so I may have a flashlight, a candle, a glow stick, different ways to get light. Same thing with a fire. To me, fire is extremely important. So I may have a lighter or a fire starter, maybe some waterproof matches. Those kind of things are important to me. And then also to save space, I think about different uses on each of the items. I know what I can use them for. You know, I can take an emergency blanket and turn it into a tablecloth or a way to wrap some of my items in. If I need to throw it in my bag, I can make a garbage sack out of it. Those are all things you need to think about. Do you need to pack one or two items that are useful in different ways? Pet preparedness. Again, make sure you.
Hey, Aaron,
Yeah.
this is Deb. I'm wondering, we're supposed to end now. I'm wondering if there's some high points you want to hit, or if you'll be able to include these in your follow-up slides, because we want to be respectful of everybody's time.
Absolutely, Deb. I'm sorry. I thought this went for till 45. Yeah, let me include them in my slide. I'll quickly go through them. So you know, some of the things you think about. I will important documents. I'll send all this over to you. Food plan, your water storage, sanitation. I do want to just say one thing really quick. Sanitation is just as important as water, because if the water's got no place for it to go, they won't have the water system, or you know, they won't have the water system on. So this is all stuff that I'll send over to you, Deb, and I do apologize for going over, but we'll include this in the information that I send to you. Appreciate the opportunity to join today.
Well, we just wanted to have a few minutes because there have been quite a few questions that have come in. So if you will quit sharing your screen, we will go to the questions and answers. And I'm just going to skim through them very quickly. So, do you recommend storing important documents in other areas, such as family in other communities or other states?
Absolutely. Great point. And yes, I store documents outside of my house in the event my house is either inhabitable, or there's a fire and I lose everything in it. So to have it, I actually keep it in a different city in the Salt Lake Valley, but to have it outside of the valley is also a great point and a great idea.
And we have someone else who said it's important to know the county you're in when it's announced on TV. I'm sure everyone knows the county they live in, but again, when you're visiting somebody, that's something that maybe you should think about. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that, you know, like I say, when I travel, I'll look at the hazards that are and potential threats that are in the area, and I'll try to plan and prepare for those as well. But you're right. Looking at and knowing the county that you're in is a great idea, and it's important to know, because when we get on and we talk about some of the threats and what we're seeing, it is going to be county specific. So a good point.
Yep. And should you keep a life jacket at home if you're in an area that could be prone to flash flood?
I keep not only a life jacket and life jackets outside of my boat. I do have a ski boat that I keep my life jackets in the garage, so they're readily available. But also have an inflatable raft that's part of my supplies. So yeah, that's important.
Well, Aaron, I want to thank you again. And just remind everybody that we've got a wealth of information that we're going to be sending you as a follow-up to this presentation, because you know what, we all got to stay healthy and safe and happy so we can meet again, because I'm coming home, and then on October 11th, I'm counting on us having another date on the second Tuesday of every month from 5:30 to 6:30. So until then, please stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us.